Toot and Kahoot. So, we have a special guest for today. Yes, it is the Twitch streamer, Mr. Streamer. I'll figure out your stream name one day.
Thank you for joining our beautiful game of Kahoot.
Thank you for creating that Kahoot, even though there was some tyranny and rage towards you for some of the answers. We love Bella anyway. Can we get a round of applause for Bella and the Kahoot and Toot? Toot and Hoot and Kahoot. Just took a poot.
It should be called Toot and Kahoot. You know,
Tootin'?
you could lay out a good
Okay,
old toot.
so today we are having our mood series. So now on to the bumper. Let's go.
Check 1, 2. Good morning, good morning. How are you guys? Scale from 1 to 10. How are you guys? Decent, decent. Okay, so I'm gonna try my best to kind of speed my way through this, but I want to still get to the meat and potatoes of the message. But I want you guys to be able to have time in small groups. So everybody, if you can just do me a favor, listen intently, be awake. So if you're not awake, then become awake or I will cry, and I really don't feel like crying right now. So please be awake. If you don't know me, my name is Brandon. So if we have never met before, it is ever so nice to meet you. And if you're tuning in online, just want to say welcome. Hoping your morning is going absolutely amazing. And if anything, I wish I was you right now, because that means you didn't have to walk out in the cold. I did. But today we are continuing our Moods series. Everybody say moods. One more time, moods. And I think especially after the year that 2020 was, it's really important for us to understand our emotions. We need to understand sadness on a deeper level. We need to understand anger on a deeper level. We need to understand guilt on a deeper level. And I think this deeper understanding of our emotions can help us deal with whatever this year ends up throwing at us to a much better, capacity. Don't you guys agree? So, it's very important. Before we get into our talk today, I have a very fun question to ask you. Have you ever been so mad, so darn frustrated, that you couldn't help but react? Or are you just somebody who's just like silent? Have you ever, and I'm actually about to go into that a little bit later. Have you ever just ended up getting so ticked off that you just reacted? Maybe you studied ultra hard for a math test and thought you knew all the material. Then when you got your test results back, you looked at the computer, because many of you guys are doing online schooling now, and you just look like this. Bring up the photo, please. Cooper, pooper, scooper. You see the test, and you're like, man, I spent 1 million hours studying, and I got an F. Or maybe your brother or sister keeps stealing something from your room. Have you ever had that happen? Your brother or sister keeps stealing something from your room, and it just makes you like, see, I want it to be fluid, but it's not. Okay, maybe it's like that. You just get completely, infuriated. Look at those baby teeth. Oh my goodness. All right. We've all gotten angry at some point in our lives. And if you haven't guessed it yet, today's topic is all about anger. Everybody say anger. One more time, anger. Anger. We've all gotten angry at some point to make us just essentially, be like this. We've all had something that turns us into an angry Thomas. I'm looking at you, Thomas. What happened to the rest of him? The anger consumed him. He got completely consumed by the anger, my guy. So, whenever I think of times in my life that I've been angry, there's always a specific story I like to remember. For those of you who don't know, and I think I've talked about this a few different times, but I used to go to, you know the video game Super Smash Brothers? We have it out there. I am considered a professional for that game. And then what would happen would be I would travel to different states and go to different tournaments. And I believe, 2016, I went to a tournament in Virginia. It was a national tournament, and I had one of the most angry moments of my life. And if you see, it wasn't for, because you guys out there are playing Smash Brothers Ultimate. This one is for the one that was for the Wii U, so it was like the previous game. But I was playing against the best player in the world. The best. He's this dude from Mexico named MK Leo. And I took away all of his lives, and he was on his last life. And I was literally, and this guy makes his living off of playing this video game. And I was about to beat him in front of all these people. And then out of nowhere, he just comboed me to death, and I died. And then, so I got ticked off. You might not be able to relate to that, but then I have another story that maybe you guys can at least understand the anger behind. This one is from yesterday. Yesterday, when I got off work, I always drive to the bank to go drop off all the tip money I get from delivery driving. And so I went to the bank, and I put my, debit card into the ATM. I was like, boop. Then it ate it. It was like, boop. It was like, beep, boop, 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 boop. But then, when it was time to take back my money, it spit back out my card, and I was about to take it, but then it just ate it. It was like, and I never got it back. So I am currently without a debit card. That happened yesterday. It's still saddening. So maybe you can't relate to those situations. After all, we all have unique things that make each of us mad. I think we can all relate to the feeling of anger to some extent. Anger is something that we all experience, right? But some things make other people angry that might not make me angry. Or there's things that make me angry, but it wouldn't make you angry. Different things cause different reactions for different people. So you can't expect yourself to, fully be able to understand somebody else's feelings that they're experiencing. Because feelings are subjective, and that means, it is to that person. And so you're not always going to fully understand what somebody else is experiencing. That's part of emotion. Everybody say emotion. But whatever the reason behind our anger, it can be easy to fall into the trap of letting it take over. We can let it affect how we think, how we respond to others, or how we talk, how we act. You see, the moment I read this slide, I can think of so many times in my life where I just let anger take me over. Maybe as you're reading this, you can think of a time that you let anger in your life take you over. Maybe you could think of somebody in your own life, maybe not you, but maybe somebody you're around who's been somebody who just lets anger take themselves over. When it comes to anger, some of us experience a thing. Actually, can I get a volunteer? Anybody want to be a volunteer? I'm not going to make you eat ramen or anything, don't worry. My guy, come on down here. Give him a round of applause, please. Hey, are you guys awake? You guys awake? Are you guys awake? All right, so just stand right here. This is a human being. Say hello, human being. Some of us, when it comes to anger, we experience something called outward anger. So these people, and sometimes you can, there's different times in your life where you lean more towards reacting this way, but sometimes more than others. Outward anger. So you might do this by screaming. Go ahead and scream. Shut up! You might do this by just name calling. Call me a name. Jerk. It's outward. You can hear it. You can see it. It's very visible. It is outward. But then others of us, we experience, and this is the one that I find myself going into a lot more, we experience something called inward anger. So instead of you just puking it all out, you keep it in. You shut yourself out from others. You become silent. You cut people off. So some of you guys might relate to that more, and you keep the anger in there. And then, if anything, I find that the anger ends up kind of cooking like a crock pot, and over time, it can even make it even worse as time moves on. And so, both of these can be very dangerous, because with outward anger, you run the risk of hurting others around you. With inward anger, you can run the risk of just straight up hurting yourself in a very deep manner. Give my friend a round of applause. Others of us experience a thing called protective anger. And this one is tricky because it's essentially anger for the right reasons. Everybody say, right. Right. It can be outward or it can be inward. Its anger is about something wrong, bad, or evil in the world. So for some of you, you guys think that, you should know that racial inequality is jacked up and it's bad. And for some of you guys, that's something that gets you fired up. That is something that ticks you off. But that's something that's I think that's a great example of protective anger. Then, you see those things happening and anger stirs up inside of you, and you want to do or say something about it to make it right. Here's what I think is so important for us to understand in this conversation. Anger isn't wrong. There's nothing inherently or morally bad about getting angry. It isn't classified as a sin, quote unquote. The mood, the feeling, the emotion, it isn't a bad thing. It's when the anger starts to control us or begins to be the boss of us that it has the potential to do more harm than good. So what do we do to manage this mood? This anger that threatens to control us, to hurt our relationships with others. Let's look at the book of James. Look at a guy, obviously, written by a guy named James. Everybody say James. One more time, James. Hi, James. James was the brother of Jesus, and so I think it's, I messed up. So let's look at what the passage says. It says, if we can get it up, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them sow it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. In James chapter 3, verses 13 through 16. Where did I go? There we are. Awesome. So let's break this down for a second, and let's keep this Bible verse up. I have sniffles. Oh, my goodness. James started with a question. He said, who is wise and understanding among you? And I really, guys, this is not the place, because usually when people start doing Bible verses, that's when you fall asleep. Listen up. This is very important. Who is wise and understanding among you? The word wise, many of you guys have heard the word wise, and if you didn't know right now, us as Journey Youth, we're going over the book of Proverbs as a Bible plan. So every day of the month, we are doing a chapter of Proverbs. And Proverbs is all about wise, wisdom, being wise. To be wise is different from being smart. You earn wisdom from experience. If you're wise, you take from what you've experienced and you learn from it. And so James asked his audience to consider which of them was wise. Which of them was going to learn from the things they've experienced and different going forward? James started saying that we can show that we are wise in the way that we live. And what is the way that we live? The way that we treat other people, the way that we view other people, and the things that we do that demonstrate our faith in God. Everybody say God. God. All right. Those things will be a sign of the wisdom that's living in your hearts. But if we have things like bitterness, envy, selfishness, or anger in our hearts, then our actions, our words, our responses will show that anger, bitterness, and envy instead. Any place in our hearts that's filled with those things, that's where James said that we'll find disorder and evil. we allow those things to exist in our hearts, they can end up coming out in our lives in the form of anger sometimes, which can have the potential to cause a lot of hurt both to us and to those around us. To your parents, to your siblings, to your friends, people who you normally wouldn't want to hurt. Because of anger, you can end up hurting them, even though that wasn't your goal. You were just experiencing that emotion of anger. In James 4:1, it says, "What is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you?" James wanted to know that if we keep anger from being the boss of us, we have to understand where it comes from. We have to get it to the core source. And according to him, another sniffle, and according to him, that source is inside of us. Everybody say, inside of me. One more time, inside of me. In James' words, the anger starts with the evil desires at war within us, which is obviously some pretty dramatic language. But when it comes to anger, all those feelings, those desires and feelings of anger that James said that are battling within us, I would say that one of the things that can come down to is control. We can get that slide up. We have this idea, I feel, of how we think life is supposed to be, how we think that people are supposed to act, the way that life happens, so we can be sure that our expectations and desires are met. We like having control. We like having a grasp on the things that happen around us. But when that grasp begins to loosen, we can get uncomfortable. Sometimes, in those areas, we can get angry. But guys, listen up. That isn't how life works. We can't exactly control how other people are going to react. We can't control what's going to happen in the world around us. We don't have that control. But what we do have control over is how we react. When we let anger control what we do, what we say, and how we act, it can become the boss of us. But remember what we said last week? Does anybody remember last week? Or do you guys just blank out? How dare you? I forgive you. Do you guys remember Maddie preaching last week? There we go. All right. What we do, what we say, becomes the boss of us. Jesus offers us a better way. He offers us the freedom from letting our feelings control us. He offers us a way to manage all of these big, horrible feelings. Anger does not have to be the boss of you. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to dictate how you act. It doesn't have to dictate your life. I don't know. There's some of you guys, you might be completely tuning out to this message because you might be thinking, look, I don't consider myself an angry person, so I can just tune out. There's still going to be areas and times in your life where you're just straight up ticked off. We all experience anger. You can't tell me that you've never experienced anger in your life. I would personally struggle to believe you. But anger doesn't have to be the boss of you. You don't have to let it control you. So you may be thinking, okay, anger doesn't have to be the boss of me. That's easy for you to say, Mr. Brandonian. But what if when I feel angry, that's all I feel. And I get that. We all fall into the trap sometimes of letting anger control us. But I do think that there are ways we can manage all these feelings that we experience and not let them be the boss of us. And I have some action steps. Everybody say, action. Action. And if you're taking notes, I'm not sure if any of you are, but if you are, let's go. If you're taking notes, this is where I definitely want you to write this down. Because this is how, because we're talking about anger, and especially for those of you who might struggle heavily with, losing your temper, this is something like heavily listen into this part. The first action step I have for you is take a step back. When we're angry, we usually feel that we have to react or respond to every single thing. But my friends, we don't have to do that. It's within our power to take a step back and evaluate the situation and realize, okay, maybe I should react in this manner, not the manner in which my feelings are making me want to react. take a step back, take a deep breath. In those moments, you can control how you react. You're the one responsible for how you react. And so in those moments, to avoid hurting others, to avoid hurting yourself, take a step back. The next step is be honest. And I think this is one that I oftentimes look at myself when I find myself. And there's been definitely seasons in my life where I get angry more than others. I'm at a point now where I feel like I really don't get angry too often. But even yesterday, I got pretty flustered and frustrated. But one of the ways I was able to move out of my kind of anger-filled areas of my life was I had to be honest. And what I mean by being honest is that you look at the core source, trying to understand where the anger is coming from. What is it in us that's setting us off and making us so darn angry? What got us to this point? So be honest, look at the core area of whatever the thing that's making you angry is. And I think oftentimes what ends up happening is that not even for one, just as a whole, we see the anger. Don't fall asleep on me. Okay, we see the anger and we end up realizing that it's not even something we should be angry about. Some of the things that we find ourselves getting frustrated about, in the grand scheme of things, is it really that big of a deal? No. Is it? No. So look at the core source of the things that are making you angry. Then lastly, own your part. Own your faults. We're in a society that, we're big on just blaming others and not taking responsibility for the things we did ourselves. So after we've been honest and we looked at the core reason of why we're angry, then at that point, we can own the parts that, I shouldn't have done this or that. So own your part and don't be afraid to do that. And I think I know a big thing is we just need to be willing to talk to God about it. God is a God who is willing to listen to us when we're angry. We're in the mood series, and I think one of the most important things about any of these emotions that we end up experiencing is that God is right there with an open ear, wanting to listen to you, and He's open to you, pouring out your heart to Him. How often do you verbalize the emotions that you're experiencing to God? I think personally that there's something powerful about literally saying it out loud. It might look different for you, but for me, in those areas where I am completely ticked off, verbalizing it helps me a lot. But don't be afraid to talk to God about how you feel. He cares about it. He cares about it more than you'll ever know. So think to yourself right now, how often do you tell God about how you're feeling? Is that a common occurrence for you? When we take a step back and we're honest with our feelings, and we're about to close, so everybody be awake. If we take a step back and are honest with our feelings and we take responsibility for how our anger makes us react, we're choosing to be wise with our anger. We're choosing to look at what's going on inside of us and make changes going forward. And as we do that, our anger can lose its power to control us. It loses its ability to cause us to react or respond in a way that isn't healthy. It loses the chance to be the boss of us. So as we close today, remember, anger, my good friends, does not have to be the boss of you. So as you go into small group with the time we have, and as we talk a little bit more about this, I want you to think about this question. What's one thing that makes me really angry? Think about your life. What's that one core thing that when it happens, you're just like, whoa! And you just get heated. So think about that, and just bow our heads and close our eyes. Dear Heavenly Father God, thank you for this amazing day, and thank you for being a God who cares about the anger that we experience, who's a God who cares about all the moods that we go through. And God, thank you for being somebody who's willing to just listen to us and help us out. We're not alone in this journey with all these emotions that we experience. And God, I pray for any of the students in here right now who anger is something that they struggle with. that they find themselves getting frustrated on a pretty common basis. And God, I pray that you'll walk alongside of them, that you'll hold their hand and let them know they're not alone, and that you can help them to actually implement these steps to find the things that are causing them to get angry. God, thank you. We love you. We praise you in your amazing name. Everybody said? All right, all right, all right. So, could I get the girls in here and the fires? I love that photo.